Hello folks, and as you can see I'm actually now back home in the Pacific Northwest, and it's just the beginning of November here. Thanks for following along my CapeWrathTrail attempt, a successful attempt as you've seen. I just posted the last video this week, and I actually thought I would take for the next video a little bit of time to maybe summarise what I actually found walking that particular trail in terms of things I learned specifically for those who actually might want to attempt it in the future. So this is the things I learned walking the CapeWrathTrail over 18 days. And I hope you stay around and listen to these little points. You might find things useful even if you don't walk the CapeWrathTrail, but you're an outdoor person, just even going for day walks in Scotland or whatever, especially in Scotland. During mid-year season, you might find this humorous and informative, I should say. So, number one is planning. So, if you haven't already watched some of the videos, I started planning or training for this hike back in January of 2023. I'd seen from various other video tubers, especially John initially from Hounds of Howgate, who hope you're doing well, John, if you're still out there, hope your house is built. One of the things he'd actually said is when he initially trained for the distance walking, and that was the wrong thing to do, and I completely agree with him. I didn't do any long distance walks. In fact, I did no walk over 13 miles during my training, but on that particular adventure of the CapeWrathTrail, I actually did 23 miles one day and over 3,600 feet elevation gain, which is crazy. So what I did is I actually started doing hikes around 2,000 feet, sort of say maximum per day. And to be honest, 2,000 feet is going to be ample. And if you can actually climb 2,000 feet vertical on a hike and do that once a week, to be honest with you, you'll be able to do the CapeWrathTrail if you feel comfortable doing that. So that's number one. So getting fit and training, make sure that when you do hike, you do 2,000 foot climb minimums and you carry all your gear. I should say, make sure you carry all your gear when you're training. When I started out training, I carried no gear just to get fit, and I just built myself up to it. So I would do some short walks initially around the neighbourhood here where I live in the Pacific Northwest. And then over the period of about 4 weeks, I then went from walking about 1 mile to 2 miles up to 8 miles around my neighbourhood. Then I started carrying the packs around my neighbourhood, which is generally flat, and I did that for about another month. Then I started doing the hiking. It's quite a snowy here still early in the year, so I didn't actually start to do some of the larger hikes until later in the season. I did manage to get a couple in at the beginning, if you've watched my preparation hikes in Tiger Mountain here. So yeah, so basically do your training, folks. It's well worth it, and 2,000 feet once a week, you'll be fine. Secondly, in terms of the planning and preparation, pick some of the best times to walk and hike in Scotland. I know it can be difficult, but I've generally found going to Scotland, back to Scotland from the Seattle area here in the Pacific Northwest, I've always found May to June is just ideal weather. It's just gorgeous. The temperature normally never gets over 75 at that point time of the year. So mid-May to mid-June is good. It's also a good time of the year to go because it's the start of mid-year season where they should be basically on, not really out in full force at that point in time. It could change, obviously. There's a mid-year forecast for Scotland on the website. Just look up Google mid-year forecast. You'll see there's a little map that gives you a daily indication based on the weather where the midges are going to be hanging out. And of course, the midges do prefer calm, still conditions with no winds, which generally means late at night, first thing in the morning. But generally, May to June, I originally planned to try and do it this year in that time frame, but it just didn't work out for me. So I decided to go a bit later, which was like mid-August to sort of early September, which actually, as you saw, it worked out great for me. And I actually just made it. About 2 weeks after I finished, the weather went to hell basically in Scotland. We had a massive hurricane, storm blew through the UK, and I watched other people's attempts where they've had to give up. It actually took one couple 12 days to get to Glen Shiel. and the weather was just so horrendous they had to give up. Another chap was starting his attempt again, leaving from Ullapool, and he had to get caught up in the same storm, and his tent poles broke and they ripped all his tent, and he had to give up basically at Reconic. So yeah, so planning and timing is everything. And again, at the end of September and in September, the firing range starts. So if you actually are planning to walk in September, that particularly won't work. So that's number 2. Number 3 is waterproofs. You probably heard me complain, grumble, moan really, really bad about Gore-Tex products. And I did some research when I came back. And in fact, I'm a motorcyclist also. And I just watched the Canadian Ryan on, it's called Fort 9.
Advertising Gore-Tex as waterproof and breathable is the sneakiest of lies. It is waterproof, it is breathable, but it isn't
And he actually was going through, he's a bit of a scientist, and he was basically going through what Gore-Tex actually is. And basically these days, folks, it's just a brand. The product itself is not what the original product was. And in fact, what the product is, believe it or not, is just PTFE, which is, polytetrafluoroethene. But you will all know it. It's that little white tape that you buy to wrap around threads for doing plumbing in joints to stop sealing. You also know what PTFE is. Teflon. It's what puts onto your non-stick pans, cooking pans. But what Gore did, who invented it, basically he found out if you actually stretch it and it fills with air, expanded PTFE is effectively what Gore-Tex is. It's nothing more than that. And he actually, for some silly reason, managed to patent it, and he made a huge amount of money through the patents and licensing business model he created for this actual material, which he didn't even invent, which is the craziest part. But here's the killer. Gore-Tex is not, and I repeat, it is not waterproof and, the key word being and, breathable. It is not waterproof and breathable. It's either waterproof or breathable. Now you think, well, is that not the same? No, it's not the same. And here's the kicker. The reason we get so wet when you wear Gore-Tex products when you're hiking is the fact is that your body generates so much heat. And when it generates so much heat, it gives off a lot of, obviously, moisture and vapor. That vapor effectively blocks the inside membrane of Gore-Tex. And when you're feeling wet with Gore-Tex products, more often than not, it's actually the wet of yourself through your sweat and moisture you're generating that actually comes back in on yourself. Also what will happen is because it then fills up all the air pores, it blocks the breathability of the product, and then the water just sits on top of it and it starts to wet, and eventually it will seep through also, so you get saturated. So Gore-Tex, folks, don't even spend the money. All the brands they have today who are the competitor products are actually using the exact same material now that Gore-Tex is using, because it became illegal to actually sell the version they actually had of PTFE to make it, and they have a modified version of it which is the exact same as the products. People still sell Gore-Tex is because it's a large business model, the brand is out there, it's established, and people normally look for the black tag with the yellow Gore-Tex on it. But to be honest, stay away from it. Don't. It's just a greedy business model. Anyway, I've done enough whinging about Gore-Tex, so that's the next one. Next one, carrying water. Big tip I learned, and I knew that from day one, and I'm just going to pass it on to you, is because there's so much water in Scotland, you do not need to carry tons of water, folks. So if you're coming to Scotland, you only need to carry 1 litre of water at any point in time. Just 1 litre. There's water everywhere. And I actually ended up only filtering my water about 3 times the entire trip, near down low cattle. When I wasn't near down low cattle and I'm in the mountains, no need to filter your water at all. On the filtering, I did buy the Solo water filter you saw in one of my episodes, and that is 3 litres per minute. It started to slow down eventually. I've now stored it for long-term use over the winter period here, but that actually worked very, very, very well. So yeah, the Soloist Peak is fantastic. I would highly recommend that product. And here's the next one. The next thing I learned was the outdoor code for doing the toilet is wrong. It's just plain wrong in Scotland. Just do not follow it in Scotland. And what I mean by this is that when you go out to do your toilet, the procedure is you have your little trowel, you dig a hole about 6 inches deep, you do your business, you fill it all in, you take your toilet paper out with you in a bag, you clean it up, and all is good. And that is basically as much as people tell you about doing the toilet outside, right? That's as much as they tell you. Just leave no trace, keep it clean, don't pollute the thing. Forget that. Total bollocks in Scotland, especially during the midge season, as you have seen, right? So never dig a hole. Never dig a hole for number 2, folks. Never dig a hole for number 2. Never in midge season in Scotland. You will live to regret it. You will live to regret it. Just do your business. Do your business first. Just let it go anywhere. Get yourself all dressed again. And then dig a hole. And then scrape with whatever things around to put that thing in there. Right? And then cover it over. The reason is that the midges sleep overnight or stay overnight in the actual moss or in the growth where you're actually doing your toilet. And as soon as you start to dig, you disrupt them. And the things were on me when I followed that rule. As you saw, it was horrendous. They were on me and over me within about 5 seconds dead. It was enough for me to take down my long johns, pull my long johns back up, and I was bitten alive. So I'm going to debunk that complete utter rubbish. Just do your business. Just do anywhere you want in Scotland and out in the wilderness. And make sure it's not near, obviously, a water source. But I would do it anywhere and then clean yourself up after it. So yeah, that has to be rewritten completely. That one is just the worst. The next tip is carrying food. I actually finished, as you saw, with 5 days worth of food left. The time it takes you to go from Ullapool to CapeWrath is just less than a week. And there's actually numerous places you can eat along the way. The old schoolhouse was fantastic. When you finish at CapeWrath, I didn't actually show that in the video. The Cafe Ozone is there and you can see some good food there. Kinlochbervie is also there, just after Connacht. Before that, the Kyle School Hotel was there. You can even go into Kylestrom if you wanted to. Bottom line of it is in the Ancient Damp Lodge is just brilliant, right, for food. So really you've got like 3 places for food. You only need 3 days of food. 3 days of food to do it from Ullapool to the end of that trail. That's all you need. And obviously in the front half, you don't need that much either. You know, it depends if you want to carry all your food and do it, which is fine. I know some people like to go out and do all these long distance walks. And from these particular long distance walks, they like to carry all their stuff and wild camp all the time. But as you get older, like me, you appreciate some home comforts. And home comfort for me is a nice cooked meal at the end of the day and a pint of beer. So my priorities when I was hiking was I'll stay in a hotel if I can get into one, because I had the budget to do that. I saved up for this trip. Failing that, I would stay in a bothy, and then third I would stay in a tent. The hotels are very, very pricey though in Scotland. That was one of the things I do regret was I did regret spending all that money up at the Kyle School Hotel, which was £300 for one night. But as you did see my dinner and you did see what I ate, it was pretty good. The hotel is definitely not worth £180 bed and breakfast. In fact, the breakfast wasn't included for £180. It was not even included. That was an extra 20 quid. So for £180, it was probably worth £70. 60, maybe 70 to £80 is what that was actually worth. The meal itself was probably a £70 meal is what I'd have said also, maximum. So really it was twice. But you're in Scotland, you're not that many people go there. It's a sort of seasonal business, so take it or leave it. But the other places were actually pretty good. Kintail Lodge was good. That was great for eating food. Kinlochew was great for eating food. That was not a problem. The cafe, obviously, at Glenfinnan was great for eating food. Um, uh, and then obviously you got to Ullapool, lots of places for eating food. So within the first 2 weeks, there's probably about 4 or 5 places easily that will be open to actually get food. So I would say 7 days food maximum, and that would include some spare days, is all you will need to carry. Also, from a gas perspective, I only took one of those small cans with me, and I replenished at Kinlochhew. So I took one gas canister, and I still had stuff left when I got to Kinlochhew. I could have taken it all the way up to Ullapool, to be honest with you. And that was me. I only was actually boiling though once a day. If you are actually boiling twice a day, you might need 2 or the bigger one, but the smaller one is fine. And even if you don't, there's places to replenish those particular stoves along the way. So that was something else. Things that broke on this trip, things to double check before you go, is one of the biggest failures I actually had on this trip was my compass. Yes, my compass. I got to the day when there was actually whiteout, going over into Glen Shiel, up the Forkin Ridge, and I discovered that no matter which direction I went, the compass always was pointing in the same direction. And it turned out I had some little stress fractures underneath on my, and a Susunto compass is a good one. I'd obviously been packed it wrongly or something, and they stretched it so much so that the needle was sticking against the bottom of where some moisture had came in, and that was useless. Didn't work. So that one was the only thing I couldn't use on the trip. The 2 maps that I took, I actually found I didn't even need them. I only referenced them for a few times and doing that map time, but to be honest, I never even used them. I used them before I went for the planning, which I thought was good. After that, I basically relied on my phone with the OS maps, which I took a subscription out for, which I highly recommend. So I used the OS maps mainly on my phone for doing all my navigation. I already downloaded all the sections I wanted to. And for the one section where I changed my mind when I went from Inchnadam up to Kyleskew, I actually just plotted that one in. So you do not need to take those maps, and that will save you some weight also. With reference to the guide, I didn't take the guide either. I actually downloaded the Kindle version I bought of it and had that on my phone. So I had the Kindle version of it on my phone. So that was also a good thing to do, and that would also save you quite a bit of weight. Obviously, between the 2 maps and the book, you've both saved quite a lot there, quite a lot. The other things that broke, my actual gaiters finally came loose, unfortunately, so they came loose. The Velcro, just the stitching, they didn't tear per se, just the stitchings came away, so I'm going to restitch them because the gaiters were good. I was actually very, very, very surprised with the gaiters that covering them over the top of your boots and over top of and then over on top of your gaiters, I had my pack-like waterproof trousers. When I forded a river with them, I was just shocked that I thought they'd be absolutely drenched my legs, but they weren't. They were actually very dry. My feet obviously get soaked going across there, but surprisingly they only get soaked through the Gore-Tex membrane that let in and not through the top of the boots. I thought the water would gush in. So yeah, there you go, folk. Gaiters definitely help. I get no ticks either. I had no idea what my travelling companion who joined me along the way, Peter, as you saw, he was covered in ticks one day. He showed me them, and I'm like, oh my god, I had to just double check for sure in case it was just telling me fibs, but it wasn't. He was actually full of them. I'd never had one. I'd get double checked. He checked me one day, and I had no ticks whatsoever. So I'm happy about that. So overall, I think basically that was the sort of top learnings and top tips that I would actually pass on to you if you actually want to do this. So what's going to be happening with this channel now, moving forwards, obviously. I urge you to go back. You can go back and look at some of my older videos. The preparation for CapeWrathTrail was there. I also done the Sky Trail. The audio quality on that 2019 I was disappointed with, but I've also done the Sky Trail in Scotland. You can see in my videos. I also have done the West Highland Way 6 times in my life, and I did it 2 years ago, and I just made a film. And if it's dark and dismal and you want to see the West Highland Way, it actually turned out pretty good. I was actually quite happy with that, and we get some good weather again. So if you look through my videos, you will see that. I'll post this one. This one should come out. My plan would be this would come out on the Monday. Monday or Friday. Friday this week, Monday next week. I will also have already done a hike since I came back to show you what the fall weather is like. Fall is autumn here in the Pacific Northwest. It's quite short, but it's a lovely hike up Snow Lake with my friend Amanda, who some of you may have seen in earlier videos, who came hiking with me. So look out for that particular one. And hopefully I'll be able to post some of the other videos I had done up here in the Northwest beforehand, and see if I can try and keep you guys entertained. So yeah, so needless to say, have a great Halloween. Hope that still happens in the world where you are. I love Halloween, and thanks a lot for coming along and listening to the old guy rabbit on for this last 20 minutes about the summary of his trail. Okay folks, take care.